So I want you to imagine a scenario that I think is going to hit incredibly close to home for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
You wake up, right? And there's this crisp, undeniable feeling of resolve in your chest. You look in the mirror and you just make a decision. You say to yourself, today is the dawn of the cycle where everything changes.
Right, that moment of total commitment.
Exactly. You are trying to fundamentally transform your reality. Maybe you're seeking this like profound, almost unimaginable level of prosperity. Or maybe you're searching for a deeply fulfilling relationship.
The kind of connection that actually anchors you instead of completely draining you.
Yes. Or, perhaps you're just chasing a monumental breakthrough in your own personal growth, just trying to shed those layers of anxiety that have clung to you for a vast expanse of time.
It's the ultimate human endeavor, really. That spark of intention is incredibly powerful.
It is. But then, and this is the agonizing part, it's so often followed by this crushing sense of bewilderment.
Because the physical environment refuses to cooperate.
Right. You have the absolute best intentions. You maintain this fiercely positive outlook. You're reading the right philosophies. You're practicing all the disciplines. You're guarding your thoughts.
You feel right down in your bones like you are doing everything right.
Like you're doing it exactly the way you're supposed to.
Yeah.
You were exerting this massive, almost tectonic willpower, and yet you keep hitting an invisible wall.
It really defies all rational logic, doesn't it?
It totally does. You take 3 massive steps forward, you feel the wind in your face, you genuinely taste the reality of this new life you're building. And then, almost out of nowhere, you're violently pulled backward into the exact circumstances you swore you were leaving behind.
The old reality just reasserts itself with a vengeance.
Exactly. It's as if the unwanted patterns in your life are drawn back to you by this inescapable magnetic force.
Like you try to build wealth, and suddenly a massive, unforeseen expense just materializes out of thin air.
Or you try to cultivate inner peace, and then in a chaotic situation explodes right in your immediate environment. It leaves you exhausted.
You start questioning your own sanity, honestly, wondering why these same cycles return with such intensity.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. It feels like you're trying to steer a massive ship by standing on the deck and blowing on the sails with your own lungs.
Completely unaware that there is a colossal iron anchor dragging along the ocean floor.
Exactly. You're exhausting yourself, pointing at the horizon, but you aren't moving an inch. So for our exploration today, we need to figure out what that anchor is made of.
And more importantly, how to pull it up.
Right. That is our exact mission for this conversation. We are going straight into the hidden mechanics of how our day-to-day reality is actually generated.
We're going to expose an invisible, silent mechanism that is quietly hijacking your progress while you're looking the other way.
Today, we are unraveling the architecture of focus. We're looking at the intense biological and energetic weight of our attention and how to master the fundamental laws that govern the materialization of our lives.
And I think the most crucial realization to start with is that the resistance you're feeling is not external.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, the anchor isn't the broader economy. It isn't your upbringing. It's not a string of incredibly bad luck or some malicious universe trying to punish you.
Right.
The resistance is entirely internal. It's born from a structural misunderstanding of how the brain filters and constructs the world around you.
So the overwhelming majority of us are operating under a false assumption.
Precisely. We assume our conscious desires, the blowing on the sail, so to speak, are the engine. We think our stated intentions, our vision boards, our positive affirmations are the supreme commanders of our fate.
But there's a much deeper, quieter current dictating where the ship actually goes.
Regardless of how loudly you shout at the wind, yes.
So I think we have to start by completely redefining a word we use every single day, a word we don't really think about in terms of its true
Wages.
currency. You have to talk about the ultimate currency, because when the average person hears currency, our minds automatically jump to paper bills.
Or digital bank balances or precious metals.
Yeah. We think of the things we use to buy groceries or pay rent. But all of those physical markers of wealth are secondary. They are completely trivial compared to the true raw material of existence.
Which is your attention.
Yes. The ultimate currency of the highest level of consciousness is your attention.
That concept requires a total paradigm shift, I think.
Definitely.
We usually treat attention as this fleeting cognitive function, just a byproduct of being awake. But attention is biological and energetic capital.
Okay, break that down for us. How is it capital?
Well, every single moment your eyes are open, your brain is bombarded by a staggering torrent of sensory data. Light, sound, temperature, social cues, threats, opportunities. It is an endless tide of information.
Right, and your brain simply cannot process all of it consciously.
It would instantly overload and shut down.
Yeah, I've read about this. The brain has to throw away a massive portion of the incoming data just to function at all.
It throws away the overwhelming majority of it. The physical machinery of your brain acts like a ruthless bouncer at the door of your consciousness.
So it only lets in the information that it deems absolutely vital.
Exactly. And how does it know what is vital? It looks at where you are spending your currency. It looks at what you are paying attention to.
Wow.
When you invest the currency of your attention into a specific idea or a threat or a desire, you are literally funding the neurological architecture that will filter your reality tomorrow.
Let that sit for a moment.
Yeah.
You don't buy a new reality with money. You exchange realities by investing the supreme currency of your focus.
Yes. When you sustain your gaze on something, you are funding its materialization in your life.
But here is the terrifying part of this hidden economy, and frankly, the part that makes me want to throw my glowing rectangle into the nearest river.
The modern environment.
Yes, we are living in a pervasive, meticulously engineered environment. We exist in an era where there is an active, systematic effort to capture and fragment human focus.
It's brilliant, really, in a very dark way.
It is. Countless systems, designed by minds with highly advanced understandings of human biology, are meticulously calibrated to shrink our attention down to a fleeting instant.
Because the modern environment is not an accident. It is the most sophisticated extraction mechanism ever conceived.
Right. Think about it biologically. Our ancient ancestors survived by having incredibly sensitive attention mechanisms.
If a twig snapped in the forest, their attention snapped to it immediately.
Because that sound could mean a predator was approaching. Our brains are hardwired to reward us with a hit of dopamine when we pay attention to novel, sudden stimuli.
Because noticing new things kept us alive.
Exactly. Now fast forward to the modern era. You are holding a device that delivers a continuous, never-ending stream of novel stimuli.
Flashing lights, vibrating notifications, endless feeds of outrage and entertainment.
These systems are hijacking the exact same survival circuitry that kept our ancestors alive in the wilderness. They are mining your consciousness.
They are extracting the very currency you need to build your own prosperity, and they're doing it by offering you the cheap illusion of connection.
Or just mindless entertainment. I can give a deeply embarrassing personal example of this, actually.
Please do. We've all been there.
So a few weeks ago, I had this pristine Saturday morning planned. I was going to read a really dense philosophical text I've been putting off. I was going to work on a personal project, really invest my energy into my own growth.
Sounds like a great plan.
Right. I sat down with my coffee, feeling incredibly virtuous, and then my device buzzed with a notification. It was a news app, a totally trivial headline.
And you clicked it.
I clicked it, which led to another article, which led to opening a social media feed. And suddenly, a vast expanse of time had just evaporated. I spent hours watching videos of people cooking extravagant meals in the woods.
You didn't even want to watch them.
I didn't. But I was paralyzed. I was completely locked into the feed. And when I finally snapped out of it, I felt physically drained. I felt foggy. I didn't have the mental energy to read a single page of that book.
Because you experienced absolute energetic bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like.
That foggy, drained feeling wasn't just in your head, it was a biological reality. Your brain consumed an immense amount of physical fuel processing all those rapid-fire images and micro-narratives.
So my attention was sliced into microscopic fragments and spent on an endless tide of trivial distractions.
Exactly. And the cost of that bankruptcy is staggering. If your attention is constantly divided and spent like that, you simply do not possess the necessary capital to pour meaning into the monumental aspects of your life.
Right. How can you fund a flourishing relationship or orchestrate a towering empire of prosperity if your energetic bank account is completely empty?
You can't. A fragmented mind lacks the biological and energetic density to render a solid reality. When you are operating on a deficit of focus, you are living on the energetic poverty line.
You're barely maintaining the circumstances you currently have.
Let alone possessing the massive surplus of capital required to orchestrate a complete shift in your existence.
Okay, I have to stop you there because while this makes perfect sense, it also feels incredibly bleak.
How so?
If this extraction mechanism is this massive and these systems are designed to hack my primal biology, Aren't we just helpless victims in this hidden economy? We are bringing a knife to a laser fight.
That is the most common reaction, but it's also a trap.
A trap.
Yes. Recognizing the theft is the very first step to absolute sovereignty. You are never a helpless victim because these systems, despite their brilliance, cannot steal your attention by force.
I guess that's true.
They cannot physically pry your eyes open and make you stare at the screen. They cannot breach the fortress of your mind without your subtle, often unconscious consent.
Okay, so they aren't robbing the bank by force. They're just setting up a really flashy casino right outside the vault, and we are willingly walking out with our bags of cash.
That is a perfect way to look at it. They are offering a trade. We, out of habit or fatigue or just a desire to numb our own anxieties, are unconsciously accepting that trade.
So reclaiming that currency requires understanding its raw elemental power.
Yes. Once you truly realize the magnitude of what you are giving away, that you are literally trading the architecture of your future for a momentary hit of cheap dopamine, you naturally stop trading diamonds for dust.
Wow. Okay, then let's look closely at the raw power of that diamond. Because attention is a finite and vital resource, understanding exactly how it physically shapes our world is the next critical step.
We need to look at the architecture of how our focus renders reality.
Right, because we are just speaking in poetic metaphors here. We are talking about an immutable sequence, a chain of materialization that operates with absolute precision.
And it all begins with a solitary spark, your attention.
Let's map out how that spark ignites the environment.
So when you fixate your gaze, and by gaze I mean your internal consciousness, the heavy weight of your thoughts upon a specific concept, you strike the flint.
And that sustained focus begins to generate a vibratory signature within your nervous system.
Exactly. Your brain starts firing in a specific pattern.
Yeah.
As that pattern repeats, as you continue to invest the currency of your attention into it, it gains momentum.
The neural pathways begin to strengthen.
The hum becomes a roaring frequency, and here is the absolute law of the sequence. That frequency must, without exception, condense into your material reality.
It crosses the threshold from the ethereal realm of thought and solidifies into the physical environment you walk through every day.
To truly grasp the magnitude of this filtering mechanism, I want you to imagine wearing an incredibly advanced piece of technology.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Picture a sensory visor that covers your eyes and ears, generating a simulated universe around you in real time based entirely on your eye movements.
Oh, this is fascinating. So you strap on this visor, and suddenly you are standing in a vast, empty void of potential.
Exactly. A sea of unrendered data. Now, you look straight ahead, and the system reads the sustained focus of your eyes. Instantly, it renders up a beautiful, incredibly detailed forest path right in front of you.
You see the dappled sunlight, you perceive the rough texture of the tree bark, you hear the wind.
That path exists solely because your attention is actively projecting it. But here is the critical part of this biological mechanism. The space behind you, the area outside of your direct line of sight, remains completely empty.
Because it's unrendered potential. It doesn't exist yet because you haven't funded it with your focus.
Precisely. But the moment you turn your head to the right, your attention sweeps across that void. Instantly, a new environment renders into existence to meet your gaze.
Like a towering mountain range or a rushing river.
The landscape is generated based entirely on what you choose to look at. Now, while this sounds like a metaphor, it is a highly accurate analogy for how your brain's filtering system works.
Let's expand on that because I don't want anyone thinking we're talking about magic tricks here. The brain doesn't magically summon a mountain out of thin air.
No, of course not.
But it does summon the perception and the opportunity out of the noise.
Yes. The universe around you contains infinite variables, infinite opportunities, and infinite threats. It is an interactive rendering engine.
It does not pre-build your personal experience.
Right. It waits for you to point the beam of your attention, and then it constructs the bridge right beneath your foot just as you take the step.
Think about it like this. If you decide you want to buy a very specific, rare type of vintage car, suddenly you start seeing that exact car everywhere you go.
Yes. The cars didn't just magically materialize in your city because you thought about them.
They were always there, driving past you every single day.
Yeah.
But your sensory visor was filtering them out because you hadn't assigned them any currency.
The moment you focused on the car, your brain rendered it into your reality. And this mechanism applies to abstract concepts just as rigidly as it applies to physical objects.
So, like, if you sustain your focus on betrayal,
Your brain will relentlessly filter your environment to highlight every subtle slight, every delayed message, every ambiguous look from a coworker.
rendering a reality where you are constantly under attack.
You will literally not be able to see the loyalty and kindness that is also present in the environment because it is outside the parameters of your visor.
Which brings us to a phrase that completely shifted my understanding of how I operate in the world. And if you, the listener, remember nothing else from our conversation today, engrave these three words into your consciousness.
Attention is alignment.
Attention is alignment. It is a principle of staggering simplicity, but it carries terrifying power.
It really does. We have been socially conditioned to think of alignment as a moral state. We think we are in alignment with the universe when we are emotionally pure or when we are doing good deeds.
We think the universe rewards the righteous, but the universe is entirely impersonal.
It operates exactly like gravity. Gravity does not run a background check on your character before deciding whether or not to pull you toward the earth.
Right. It doesn't care if you are a saint who rescues animals or a terrible person who steals from their neighbors. If you step off a ledge, gravity simply applies its law.
The universe operates in the exact same cold, impersonal, mathematical manner. It does not judge your character. It simply registers your alignment.
And your attention is your alignment. Wherever you place the intense beam of your focus, you are actively commanding the rendering engine to align you with that reality.
You are signing a binding contract with whatever holds your gaze.
If you stare intensely at scarcity, if you obsess over your dwindling bank account and panic about the economy, the universe impersonally registers. Alignment with scarcity recognized. Rendering scarcity protocols now.
It simply matches the frequency of your gaze with the material equivalent.
I can hear the panic setting in for our listener right now. I know I felt it when I first understood this.
Oh, the fear of a passing thought.
Yes. If attention dictates alignment, and my attention is constantly being pulled by the news or stressful emails, am I instantly ruining my life?
People worry about this constantly.
Like, if I am walking down the street and I accidentally witness a heated argument, or I read a terrifying headline, am I instantly rendering a terrible reality?
That is a very valid fear, but it misunderstands the biological threshold required for rendering.
Okay, clarify that for us.
The brain, and by extension the universe, is incredibly responsive, but it requires a critical mass of energetic density to construct lasting physical pathways. A passing glance, or a fleeting negative thought, is merely a solitary spark.
It flickers brightly for a millisecond and then vanishes.
Exactly. It does not possess the necessary momentum to alter your fundamental vibratory signature.
It's like dragging a thin branch lightly across the surface of a deep lake. It makes a tiny ripple, you see a little disturbance, but the water settles and returns to glass almost immediately.
That's a perfect image. The rendering engine ignores the ripples. However, it is sustained attention that builds the monumental structures of your life.
So when that passing glance at a terrifying headline becomes a prolonged stare,
when that fleeting worry about your finances becomes a chronic, obsessive rumination that you carry with you from dawn until dusk.
when you do that, you are no longer making a ripple. You are carving a massive canyon through your neural pathways.
The universe requires a steady, unwavering gaze to render a solid environment. It needs you to fund the project continuously over a passage of eras.
This leads us directly into what I think is the most frustrating disconnect in the human experience. It is the absolute triumph of attention over intention.
This is exactly where the ship's anchor catches on the jagged rocks.
I want to present a vivid scenario to illustrate just how literal and impersonal this mechanism is. Let's call this the restaurant of reality.
This is a brilliant framework for understanding the mechanics of miscommunication between our conscious desires and our subconscious rendering.
Okay, so think about a scenario like this. Imagine you're traveling far away.
Right, somewhere completely unfamiliar.
Exactly. You walk into this restaurant in a distant, bustling city, and you don't speak a single syllable of the local dialect. And the waiter approaches you. He's very polite, very attentive, but completely unable to understand your verbal language.
Okay, I'm with you.
He hands you a menu, but to your surprise, there are no words on it. It's filled entirely with vivid photographs of the various dishes.
A purely visual interface, no words, no explanations.
Yeah. And you look at the menu, and you immediately lock onto a picture of a meal you absolutely despise. Like maybe you're highly allergic to it, or you just find it utterly repulsive.
Okay.
You become so agitated by the mere sight of it that you point your index finger directly at the picture. You start tapping the photograph emphatically, shaking your head in disgust, and stating loudly, "I do not want this. This looks terrible. Under no circumstances should you bring me this dish."
Your intention is crystal clear to you. You are entirely focused on avoiding that specific outcome.
Exactly. You're exerting immense willpower and intention. But remember, the waiter does not speak your language.
Right. He cannot comprehend the linguistic nuance of your rejection.
He cannot hear the words no, never, or do not. All the waiter observes is the intense, sustained focus of your pointing finger.
He sees the absolute fixation of your gaze upon that specific image.
Yes. He feels the intense emotional energy you are radiating while looking at it. So what does he do? He smiles warmly, nods with deep understanding, takes the menu, and walks straight to the kitchen to bring you exactly what you were pointing at.
Because the universe is the waiter in this scenario.
Exactly.
The filtering mechanism of your brain does not process negatives. It does not understand human words, desperate pleas, or carefully constructed lists of what you wish to avoid.
It doesn't care about the affirmations you shout into your bathroom mirror every morning if those affirmations are rooted in fear.
It only registers the heavy, energetic weight of your focus. It registers what you point at, period.
And this completely shatters the fallacy of wanting. We are taught that wanting something intensely, desiring it with all our hearts, is the key to bringing it into existence.
But wanting is almost always a clever disguise for focusing entirely on the absence of the thing you desire.
Let's break that down with a real-world application, because this is where so many people get trapped. Let's look at the pursuit of a deeply fulfilling relationship.
Okay, that is your stated intention. You want love, respect, and partnership.
But observe where your attention is actually pointing. Your attention is fixated entirely on how terrible the modern romantic landscape is.
You spend hours listening to stories about failed relationships. You analyze past betrayals.
You scroll through content that cements the belief that loyalty is extinct and everyone is out to manipulate you. So your conscious intention is shouting for love, but your attention, your daily vibratory signature, is set firmly to the frequency of despair and suspicion.
The waiter only sees you tapping furiously on the picture of betrayal, and he serves it up.
Or, consider the pursuit of immense prosperity. You intend to achieve financial freedom. You write down your lofty goals.
But your daily, sustained attention is relentlessly focused on a terrifying lack of resources.
Right. You stare at your mounting expenses with a tight chest and shallow breath. You obsess over the scarcity of opportunity in your industry. You fixate on the fundamental unfairness of the economic system.
You are pointing violently at the picture of poverty, shouting at the top of your lungs, "I don't want this."
And the universe, impersonal, cold, and exact, registers the alignment with scarcity. It recognizes the sustained gaze upon lack, and it dutifully, perfectly renders a reality that matches that exact frequency.
Attention overrules intention in every single instance. There are absolutely no exceptions to this law.
It is a tough pill to swallow, but your life, right now, in this exact moment, is a flawless mirror of your sustained attention over the passage of eras, regardless of what your noble intentions might have been.
Which brings us to a terrifying yet completely necessary realization.
Yeah.
If we are intelligent creatures, and we know that focusing on the negative renders a negative reality, why on earth do we keep doing it?
That is the million-dollar question. It's like we are holding a massive magnifying glass over a pile of dry, brittle leaves. We are desperately wishing for a rainstorm to put out a fire, but all we are doing is focusing the intense sunlight through the glass and starting a raging inferno.
We can feel the heat. We know the fire is burning us.
So why are our hands so stubbornly, almost pathologically, holding the glass over the wrong spot? Why is it so incredibly difficult to just move our hand and focus on the damp soil instead?
Because you are not the only force operating your arm.
Wait, what?
Understanding why we focus on what hurts us requires us to confront a deeply ingrained force within our own biology. We have to address the phantom of the past.
The old frequency. And I want to be very clear with everyone listening. We are not talking about a poetic metaphor here or some mystical ghost haunting your aura. We need to conceptualize this old frequency as a tangible, energetic entity that lives within your neural architecture.
Let's trace the creation of this entity. Imagine the vast passage of eras that make up your life. In the distant past, every time you experienced intense stress, every time you felt the sharp sting of social rejection.
Every time you operated from pure, unadulterated survival instincts.
Exactly. Your brain released a flood of stress hormones. Those hormones forged a specific neural pathway. It was like dropping a heavy stone into the soft earth of your subconscious.
A solitary stone of anxiety.
Yes. Now imagine dropping that exact same stone in the exact same place, day after day, year after year, in response to every minor stressor.
Over an endless tide of time, those stones pile up. They compress together under the weight of repetition.
The neural pathway thickens with a protective sheath, making the signals travel incredibly fast. You have essentially built a colossal, immovable mountain in your mind.
Your repeated anxieties and habitual fears have forged a blind, self-preserving intelligence within your own biology.
And it is crucial to understand that this entity, this old frequency, is not inherently evil.
It's not a demon.
No, it is merely a biological construct of your own past creation. It was built to protect you by keeping you hyper-aware of danger.
But over time, it has developed a parasitic nature. It acts as an attention parasite.
It doesn't hate you. It simply wants to survive, like any living organism. And its exclusive food source, the only nutrient that sustains its existence and keeps that neural pathway active, is your familiar emotional reaction.
It feeds on your stress. It feasts on your anger, your sorrow, and your deep-seated feelings of victimization. Because those heavy emotional states are the exact materials it was constructed from.
So what happens when you finally decide to change? What happens when you set a new intention, hold a new elevated vision, and try to steer the ship toward a higher altitude?
The entity begins to starve. You stop feeding it the stress hormones it expects.
And a starving entity will fight viciously for its life.
This is the biological mechanism behind self-sabotage. This is the invisible wall we discussed at the very beginning of our conversation.
Yes. As you take those 3 monumental steps forward toward a new, peaceful reality, the old frequency panics.
It orchestrates massive internal detours. It violently redirects your attention to highlight adversity in your environment.
It will take a completely neutral event, a delayed email from a boss, a misplaced set of keys, and magnify the frustration infinitely.
Manipulating your perception to provoke the exact emotional distress it desperately needs to sustain itself.
It literally handcuffs you to the past by demanding you react the exact way you always have.
It physically pulls your arm back to point the magnifying glass at the dry leaves because it needs the heat of the fire to survive the winter.
That reframes everything. The realization here is profound. When you are trying to improve your life and you suddenly hit a massive wave of internal resistance, or you find yourself spiraling into an old, toxic habit,
Those obstacles aren't signs of failure.
they aren't the universe telling you that you are unworthy of your goal. They are simply the desperate, thrashing, feeding attempts of a starving past version of yourself.
It is the sound of the old neural pathways trying to fire one last time before they wither. The obstacle isn't a stop sign. It's a symptom of your own evolution.
But simply understanding this parasite isn't enough to kill it.
Right. To defeat a mechanism that thrives entirely on your predictable, habitual reactions, you have to do something radical. You have to entirely rewrite your response to the obstacles it throws in your path. We have to learn the alchemy of adversity.
Alchemy is the perfect framework for this. We are talking about the ancient concept of transmuting base, heavy emotional lead into the pure gold of a higher frequency.
The old frequency maintains its iron grip on your life through a very specific deception.
Yeah.
The illusion of the pre-made choice. I really want to break down this illusion because this is the trap that catches us every single day.
The illusion operates in the minuscule gap between a stimulus and your reaction.
Okay, lay it out for us.
When a catastrophic event occurs in your reality, perhaps a sudden monumental financial burden or an unexpected and cruel betrayal by a friend, the old frequency instantly activates.
It wraps tightly around your perception and makes it seem as though your emotional response is already predetermined.
It demands absolute devastation. It demands blinding anger. It presents despair as an absolute, undeniable, objective truth. It whispers in your ear, look at what has happened to you. You have no choice but to be destroyed by this. Anyone would be destroyed by this.
It insists that the external event and your internal reaction are one continuous, unbreakable thing, that they are fused together. But they aren't.
No, they aren't. And to practice alchemy, we must assert a radical truth. Every single event, no matter how dire, no matter how objectively terrifying or unfair it appears, is actually a menu.
A menu of circumstance.
Yes. You are not being handed a mandate from the universe. You are being handed a menu, and you are being asked to choose an alignment.
The most obvious default reaction to adversity, the blinding panic, the righteous rage, the comforting blanket of victimhood, is a trick, is the most prominent item on the menu, highlighted in bold letters, completely orchestrated by the old frequency to secure its next massive meal.
Because if you choose that default reaction, if you order the panic, you sustain the old alignment. And the rendering engine dutifully produces more of the same chaotic reality.
But hidden away on that menu, printed in tiny text, is something extraordinary. Inside every unwanted reality, deeply buried within the rubble of the chaos, is the hidden, unobvious seed of a wanted reality.
Let's ground this hidden seed concept with a profound, heavy example. Because it's easy to be an alchemist when you spill your coffee.
Right, it's much harder when your life is collapsing.
Yeah.
Imagine you were suddenly hit with a monumental, life-altering financial debt from a massive, faceless central authority, a staggering blow that threatens everything you have built.
The quintessential external crisis, the ultimate test of the nervous system.
The old frequency immediately presents the pre-made choice. Blind terror, a descent into total despair, and a crushing feeling of being utterly powerless against a system far larger than yourself.
The obvious reaction is to stare exclusively at the massive number on the debt notice, pointing at it in the restaurant of reality, screaming, "I am ruined! This is the end!"
And by doing so, by sustaining that terrified focus, you perfectly align with ruin. You fund the ongoing reality of ruin with your biological currency.
But the hidden seed, the alchemical transmutation, requires you to look past the obvious panic. In this very specific, terrifying scenario, what could the hidden seed possibly be?
It is finding the discipline to focus intensely on a completely different truth. This central authority only pursues individuals who possess the profound capacity to generate immense wealth. You are on their radar because, on a fundamental level, you are a massive creator of value. They do not hunt the incapable.
The transmutation happens in the exact moment. You detach your gaze from the suffocating weight of the debt itself, and you consciously, forcefully fixate your attention on your inherent, undeniable capacity to generate resources.
By focusing entirely on your own unshakable ability to create value rather than the temporary deficit, you set in motion the frequency of abundance.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to stop you, and I'm going to push back fiercely on this. I'm going to play devil's advocate because I know exactly what someone listening is thinking right now.
I welcome it.
If someone loses their job, or faces a devastating financial collapse, or loses their home, telling them to find a hidden seed and focus on their ability to create wealth sounds dangerously close to toxic positivity.
I see where you're going with this.
It sounds incredibly dismissive. It sounds like walking up to someone whose house is currently engulfed in flames and telling them to be grateful for the warmth. How is this alchemy actually any different from just burying your head in the sand and pretending everything's fine when your life is objectively burning down?
That is a vital challenge. And the distinction between the two is the difference between surviving and drowning.
Okay, explain the difference.
Toxic positivity is a form of active denial. It is the act of ignoring the event entirely. It is plastering a superficial, fragile veneer of forced happiness over a gaping, bleeding wound.
It is looking at the burning house and saying, "What fire? Everything is perfect."
That is a delusion, and the rendering engine does not respond to delusion. It responds to your underlying, terrifying vibration of denial. So toxic positivity is refusing to see the fire.
Right.
Alchemy, however, is a martial art. It is using the raw, kinetic momentum of the event to your advantage. You are not denying the loss of the job or the massive debt. You are acutely, vividly aware of the reality of the situation.
You see the fire. You feel the blistering heat.
But you are absolutely refusing to let the fire dictate your internal vibratory signature. You aren't saying, "I am so happy I am in massive debt."
No. You're saying, "This event has caused a massive spike of adrenaline in my system. It has shattered my comfort zone. It has freed up an immense amount of my energetic capital that was previously tied up in a complacent routine, and I am now going to actively mine this terrifying rubble for the gold of a new direction."
Exactly. You are taking the raw, intense energy of the shock and deliberately channeling it into the construction of your next chapter.
You are using the heat of the fire to forge a new sword rather than letting it burn you to ash. Toxic positivity is passive, fearful denial. Alchemy is active, masterful, courageous transmutation.
Mining the rubble for gold, using the adrenaline as fuel rather than letting it paralyze you.
But to do that in the face of a crisis requires a mind that is intensely resilient, completely sovereign, and deeply anchored, which leads us to the absolute necessity of fortifying the mind.
Yes, if we are going to transmute massive adversity, we cannot have a leaky, fragmented attention span.
We must build an impenetrable mental fortress. And the foundation of that fortress begins with understanding the ultimate relationship between the mental cause and the physical effect.
This is where you step fully into claiming ultimate authority over your human experience. We must address the concept of external negativity.
Like when other people project ill intentions, harsh judgment, or active bitter malice toward you.
The constant slings and arrows of dealing with the outside world, dealing with a toxic coworker, a jealous friend, or just the general hostility of society.
Right. The foundational law of the fortress is that the mental realm is the absolute undisputed cause, and the physical realm is merely the delayed effect.
Think of your environment as a movie screen, and your mind as the complex projector. Therefore, no external force, no malicious intent from another person, no societal judgment can infiltrate or damage your reality unless your subconscious actively grants it permission to enter.
And how do we accidentally grant it permission? By focusing on it in fear.
Precisely.
If someone projects malice towards you, and you fixate your attention on that malice, if you lay awake at night worrying about what they said, mentally defending yourself in imaginary arguments, playing out worst-case scenarios,
You have just walked over and opened the heavy iron gates of your own fortress.
you have taken their unwanted toxic reality and funded its materialization in your own life with your own biological currency.
You paid for the invasion. Complete, unshakable conviction in your own invulnerability is the ultimate impenetrable shield.
When you fundamentally accept, on a cellular level, that the physical world is entirely subordinate to the mental world, the external noise simply bounces off the thick walls of your sovereign focus.
But to maintain those walls, to keep the gates closed, you must have complete muscular control over where you place your attention.
Which brings us to what I consider the greatest, most pervasive modern excuse, the grand illusion of the wandering mind. How often do we hear people say, how often do I say, I just cannot focus anymore. My mind is broken. My attention span is destroyed. I have a fundamental deficit.
We wear this inability to focus almost like a cultural badge of honor, or we treat it as a medical inevitability that completely absolves us of any responsibility for our chaotic lives.
It is a widespread systemic belief, deeply reinforced by the culture, and it is fundamentally biologically false.
You do not have a deficit of focus. A deficit implies an absence of capability. It implies the machinery is broken. Your machinery is flawless.
You simply have a massive, chronic misallocation of focus. Let's prove that right now, because it exposes the lie we tell ourselves.
Okay.
The exact same person who claims they cannot concentrate on a single page of philosophy, the person who says they cannot sit still for 5 minutes of quiet reflection to plan their future, is highly, extraordinarily capable of entering a trance-like state of deep, unbroken concentration and a vast expanse of time when they are consumed by trivial entertainment.
Absolutely. They can scroll through infinite feeds, rapidly processing complex visual and social information.
They can binge-watch entire seasons of intricate, multi-layered narratives tracking dozens of characters.
They can play immersive, highly demanding digital games without their attention breaking for a single fraction of a second.
The capability for intense focus is absolutely there. The biological machinery is fully operational and highly optimized. It is simply being hijacked and pointed in a direction that yields zero return on your energetic investment.
And the danger of repeating the phrase, I cannot focus or my attention is broken, goes far beyond just making an excuse. It is actually catastrophic to your reality because it triggers a profound neurological loop.
This introduces an axiom we have to explore. Whatever the thinker thinks, the prover proves.
This is a devastating feedback loop of neuroplasticity. Let us define the roles. The thinker is your conscious mind. It is the part of you that adopts beliefs, forms identity, and makes definitive declarations about who you are and what you are capable of.
And the prover is your subconscious mechanism, the rendering engine, whose sole dedicated purpose is to gather evidence from the environment to prove the thinker correct.
So if you adopt the belief and you say out loud, I lack attention, I am easily distracted, my brain is broken.
The thinker has spoken. The command has been issued.
Yes, and instantly the prover goes to work to validate that command. The internal mechanisms will actually orchestrate your biology to ensure that you continuously experience a fragmented mind.
The prover will lower your neurological resistance to distraction. It will make the ping of your device seem impossibly, overwhelmingly enticing.
It will amplify background noise to agitate you. It will orchestrate an environment that continuously, flawlessly validates the thinker's belief.
I really need the listener to grasp the weight of this. When we casually laugh and say, oh, I'm so easily distracted, or I have the attention span of a goldfish, we are not just making a self-deprecating joke.
Oh, you're not.
We are literally commanding the universe and instructing our own neurology to bring us a tidal wave of distractions just to prove ourselves right. We are both the architect designing the limitation and the helpless victim crying out from inside the cell we just built.
You have painstakingly constructed the prison, swallowed the key, and spent your days complaining about the tight confinement.
To break this loop, the thinker must adopt a radical new command. You must stop declaring your own weakness, and you must begin the practical, physical restoration of your focus.
We need a tangible way to reclaim this currency. We can't just conceptualize focus. We need a physical practice to pull our fragmented, scattered energy back into a dense, centralized beam.
And one of the most powerful, yet remarkably simple methods to restore this sovereignty is the sustained practice of reading a physical text aloud.
It sounds almost laughably simple, which is precisely what the old frequency wants you to think.
The parasite wants you to believe that reclaiming your power requires complex, impossible rituals that you will eventually give up on. But the act of reading a physical text aloud is a profound act of neurological synchronization and energetic centralization.
Let's look at the actual biology of why reading aloud is such a powerful weapon against a fragmented mind. When you do this, you are forcing multiple, distinct brain architectures to synchronize simultaneously. First, you have the visual processing centers of the eyes scanning the symbols on the physical page. That requires sustained visual focus.
Then you have the physical, mechanical effort of the motor cortex, coordinating your breath, your tongue, and your vocal cords to enunciate those symbols into sound. That requires deep physical presence.
And simultaneously, your auditory cortex is hearing the words you are speaking, looping the information right back into your mind for processing.
You are creating a closed, unified, impenetrable circuit of attention. You are forcefully taking all your fragmented energy, which was previously scattered across a dozen different anxieties, past regrets, and the constant hum of digital distractions, and you are weaving it into a singular, powerful beam of intention.
You are taking your brain to the gym. You are exercising the physical muscle of sustained attention.
And more importantly, you are proving to the prover, with undeniable physical evidence, that you are, in fact, highly capable of unbroken focus.
It is the exact equivalent of taking scattered ambient sunlight and gathering it through a magnifying glass until it becomes a laser capable of cutting through steel.
Taking control of this inner architecture, realizing that you are the one holding the lens, strips away all the comforting excuses we hide behind.
It strips away every excuse. When you truly realize that the external world is largely a rendering of your internal focus, the responsibility shifts entirely back onto your shoulders.
And while that immense responsibility can feel incredibly heavy initially, it is the absolute only path to genuine, unshakable freedom.
Without a doubt.
As we draw this exploration to a close, we need to leave you, the listener, with a broader reflection, a monumental shift in how you view your place in the vastness of the cosmos.
You must understand, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you are the single most meaningful, powerful element in your own reality.
Elevating your consciousness, choosing to master your focus, is not about playing superficial games of the ego. It isn't about proving you are better than anyone else or acquiring shiny objects just to show them off to people you don't even like.
It is about recognizing your profound, inherent capability to dictate the laws of your own existence. It is about waking up from the passenger seat, looking down, and realizing you have always been the one holding the steering wheel.
By mastering the quiet, internal direction of your gaze, by refusing to be hijacked by the algorithms or the old frequency, you hold the power to collapse old, decayed timelines.
You can render entirely new worlds, worlds of staggering beauty, immense, overflowing prosperity, and limitless potential.
It all comes down to where you choose to point the beam of your attention. The raw currency is right there, resting in your hands.
The question is no longer how to get what you desperately want. The only question that matters is where you are currently spending your wealth.
I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. Something for you to deeply mull over the very next time you find yourself staring absently at a flashing screen, or spiraling down into a familiar, comforting worry.
A shift in perspective.
Yes. If the universe, with cold, absolute precision, brings into physical reality whatever you sustained your gaze upon, what would happen if, starting right now, in this exact moment, you treated your attention with the exact same reverence, the exact same fierce, uncompromising protection as you do your own physical life.
Because, in the grandest, most literal sense of the universe, your attention and your life are exactly the same thing.
They are completely indistinguishable. So as you walk out into the world today, remember the massive ship we talked about at the very beginning? You don't need to stand on the deck and blow harder on the sails.
You just need to realize that your gaze is the anchor.
Lift the anchor of your attention away from the jagged rocks of your past. Point it fiercely, unwaveringly toward the horizon of your highest potential, and let the deep, silent currents of the universe carry you forward. Keep your gaze steady.